Oh, hey folks, welcome back. Greetings from the Hodgson, Kidd, and McGorkle Cemetery. It's on a ridge about a mile into the forest behind my house. The cemetery burials all date from around, at least based on the marked headstones, all date from the 1860s, 70s, through the 19-teens. However, that's only the headstones on half of the cemetery. The north half of the cemetery has headstones. The south half of the cemetery has only undressed fieldstone markers. A very stark line cuts the cemetery in half. I need to do more research, which I could do if the local historical society, the McClung Collection in downtown Knoxville, were actually open, but yay, coronavirus. But that's not why we're here. We are here to talk about Week 4, Activity 2, as well as your final project. So before we talk about Week 4, Activity 2, let's talk final project. So if you have successfully finished and uploaded the library research guide, congratulations, thank you. I will start taking a look at those in a couple days. Surprise, if you did upload those library research guides by today, Monday, April 13th. Anyway, today, Monday, April, I'll put it on screen, the date. What are days of the week? What is the calendar these days anyway? But if you did, congratulations, you get a 2-point bonus. Just like the activity grades. You submit an activity by the end of that activity's week and you get a bonus on that activity. If you haven't been able to yet submit your library research guide, if you could get it submitted by this coming Sunday, the Sunday after Easter, whatever that date is, it's still full credit. And then after that, it's 5% lost per week, and there's only a couple weeks left in the semester. So make sure, whatever the circumstances are for you, that if you can get that library research project done, get it done by May 7th. That's the due date for everything for class. All right? So, the final project. Until now, there's a change I'm announcing, by the way, that phrasing, until now. Until now, the final project was to be a group project. But I've learned my lesson from another one of my classes, where we were interrupted, dispersed from campus, in the middle of their group project. And I spent several days this past week dealing with students suddenly needing to opt for the alternative individual project that I had announced right after spring break when we went into our diaspora. Good thing I did. I do not want you all in that same situation. No matter how much you want to work with and collaborate with your displaced classmates, things can go wrong. Things can happen. This is still a fairly fluid situation. The number of COVID-19 confirmed infections in North Carolina is growing every day. We just don't know what's going on. So, to mitigate the chances, to fight against the chances that you are facing the end of the semester with a group project done at a distance, I'm changing the project. There's still going to be a project, and the project still looks at our campus landscape history. But we're doing it a little bit differently. First is we're doing it individually. Second is that we're going to work in stages towards this new individual version of the project. We're going to start those stages this week for Week 4, Activity 2. That's why I waited to talk about this week's second activity until telling you about the changes to the final project. The original project was a group project, and you and your partners picked a year on campus, 1910, 1920, 1930, 1940, 1950. And as a team, you used special collections materials, many of which are available online, and we still will be using for this individual version of the project. But you worked together to try to piece together what campus looked like in your selected year. What buildings were on campus? What did they look like? Where were they located? So that project, as a group project, would still have carried on, and you simply would have been locked out of special collections without access to the clippings files, which have never been a really major part of this project, have never been a serious source of material for this project. You would have, however, been locked out of the annoying, useful component for the project, and that is a trove of buildings files in the closed stacks of special collections. But I still had hope that the project would be doable virtually, because we still have access to the ASU historical photos, we still have access to the Appalachian online, we still have access to digital copies of the student yearbook going back to the 1920s, and we still have access to the University Archives website with the building timelines. That being said, as an individual project, I cannot ask you individually to reconstruct what the whole of campus looked like in a given year. That's just too much work. So I am uploading a revised final project guide to As You Learn. It'll be up by this weekend, for the week after Easter. And the project in a nutshell asks you to pick a building. You do some research, and I'll point out what the process, the steps are for that research in just a moment, actually. And you create a small report, a PowerPoint or Keynote or Google Slides presentation showcasing that particular building, talking about its history, and trying to map that building onto the campus. Where was it? And what were the nearest buildings to that building in a given year? So you'll be picking a building, and then you'll be picking a year for your map of that building. So for instance, if it were Wellborn Hall, the long-serving cafeteria, you'd go through the research. We'll talk about those steps in a moment. You would find your photos of the building, when the building was built, what it was used for, when it was demolished. And then you would pick a year. Not all the years of Wellborn's long and storied existence, but 1 year. And for that 1 year, your task would be to try to figure out what buildings were nearest to Wellborn Hall. You're not going to worry if Wellborn Hall, I'm not going to tell you where it was, but if Wellborn Hall was, say, vaguely near where the Aspire statue is today. Your task then, and let's say you picked 1940, would be to say, what were, in 1940, the nearest buildings to Wellborn Hall? And from the photos I've seen of Wellborn Hall, and maybe the 1947 Sanborn Insurance Map Panel, what would the landscape immediately around Wellborn Hall have looked like in the year 1940? All right? It's a much cut down project. I think even in our current pandemic circumstances, it's something that I thought you still can get a portion, a taste of what would have been the big project of our class, and have that taste in a manageable portion. Okay? That brings us to the steps in the process. And the steps in the research process are going to be 3 things. Just 3 steps. After you've read the assignment guide, that'll be posted later this week. After you've picked your building, and after you've picked a year for your map. The first step is going to be navigating the University Archives website and the historical buildings timelines. To familiarize you with that process, this week's activity, Week 4, Activity 2, will be working with those timelines. And then the second step of the process will be next week, Week 5, Activity 1, where we will work with the ASU Historical Photos Collection. Then, Week 5, Activity 2, next week, we'll be working with the digital copies of the rhododendron and the digital copies of the Appalachian. So each of those days I'll have a little screencast about how to navigate those particular activities and the digital special collections relevant to those activities. And then, finally, Week 6, our last activity, tied to what would have been the last physical meeting of our class for Tuesday, April 28th. So that day, I will run a live stream and a screencast in that live stream. So you're welcome to stop by. That'll be during class time on Tuesday afternoon, 2 o'clock to 3 o'clock-ish. and then again 3:30 to 4:30-ish. So that's what we're looking at going forward. The next 3 activities are all tied in to building up your familiarity and your ability to research your selected building and the immediate environs around that building in a given year via, first, the University Archives building timelines, second, the ASU Historical Photos database, and then third, the documents material on the University Archives website, the Rhododendron Yearbook and the Appalachian Student Newspaper. And so once we've had those class opportunities, and I've gone back over that last week of class, week 6, activity 1, live stream plus screencast, to kind of tie that all together, I will record the live stream, so there's no reason to log into our YouTube channel to see it, but I'll send you out an email invitation in case you want to stop by. Once we've done that, you will need to basically do your research, use those materials. Honestly, given what we'll be up to, I would suggest that you read the assignment guide, pick a building, pick a year for your map, and then as we do these activities, make notes, pay attention to your building and your local slice of campus for your map as we move through the semester. That's what we're facing. I think it'll be a whole lot easier and a lot less time consuming for you and a lot less worrisome for me, given my experience elsewhere this semester with group projects that sort of lingered into our diasporatic period. So in the meantime, I'm going to go back to the cemetery and see what I can see. Maybe look around here, see where exactly the road might have been that led up to the cemetery. Because I know for sure already that this cemetery does not appear on an 1895 coffee and pill map of Knox County, Tennessee, that does have other cemeteries. There's not a church nearby. The nearest church, there's 2 churches that are down the road, but a couple miles at least. Mount Olive Baptist Church to the northeast, and then Mount Bethel, that I honestly don't know if it was Methodist or Baptist. It just is on the map in 1895 and says Mount Bethel Church to the southeast. I'm going to do some digging, metaphorically, not literally. Although I do know some really good bioarchaeologists that we could figure out this cemetery and pretty quick. But anyway, hope you're doing well. Talk to you soon.